Hello, hello, and welcome everybody to another virtual meetup. So wonderful to see so many people popping in right on time. Fantastic. We've got people from all over. We've got people from South Africa, UK, Holland, Perth, Brussels, Griffith, New South Wales, Australia, Sydney, of course, Perth, Port Macquarie, Australia, Scotland, Albury, all over the place. Fantastic. So good to see you all. Hello, hello. My name is Danielle Stein Fairhurst. I am a financial modeler. I am coming to you from Gadigal land, which is in Sydney, Australia. I'd like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, to their elders past and present, and extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. So I'm a financial modeling specialist and I run these meetups quite regularly. Usually they're virtual. Every now and then we're able to get together in person as a hybrid event in Sydney. And I do really enjoy bringing speakers from all over the world to talk to you about different topics relating that are useful for financial modelers and relating to Excel. And today we have a special treat for you. We have got Mike Thomas, who is joining us all the way from Manchester in the UK. Hello, Mike. You've got my favorite T-shirt on today. And Mike is a Microsoft trainer, and he is a specialist in all of the brand new things that Excel is bringing out. I tell you what, there are so many changes, it can be quite difficult to keep up with what's going on in Excel. And today, Mike is going to take us through the Excel for Microsoft 365 game changers. I think that the two things he's going to focus on mostly is data types, which are absolutely fantastic, and dynamic arrays. Is that right, Mike? Is that what you have in store
which
for
are
us?
even more fantastic.
Yes, there's been so many changes. We had a meetup just a couple of weeks ago with Jeff Robson on dynamic arrays for financial modeling, and it was clear that there was a huge amount of interest in dynamic arrays, and so we're going to delve into that just a little bit more today. So if you are joining us live on Zoom, do feel free to just pop in the chat and say hi, and any questions or comments, and chatting to each other as we go, that's fine. We've also got a Q&A down the bottom, so any questions for Mike, feel free to pop those in there. And if you're joining us on YouTube, there is a chat as well. So I will pass over to you, Mike, and let you do your intro.
Okay, great, thanks. So let me share my screen.
Right, we can see your Excel. Fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, I normally have a one slide PowerPoint, but it was causing problems, so I'm not going to display my PowerPoint. So yeah,
okay, we prefer
hello
Excel.
and welcome.
Excel is much better than PowerPoint.
That's true. Okay, so yeah, hello and welcome. Today I'm going to cover a couple of things, as Danielle said. One is data types, and the other is dynamic array functions. So let's start with data types. So in the beginning, there were numbers, there were dates, and there was text and formulas. And these were the only types of data that you could store in a cell in Excel. And then Microsoft added more data types. If I go up to the data menu, you can see here that we've got a whole bunch of data types. They started off with geography and stocks and currencies. These other data types, Microsoft actually, I think, put in as an experiment, and they have decided that experiment didn't really work. These didn't get used a great deal, and they're retiring those actually next year. But what the data types do is they basically allow you to convert text into live values which have their own properties. So to show you what I mean, these here originally started life as just words. And what I can do is what I've done is I've converted those from words into live data types by selecting them and changing them into geography. And then each data type has its own set of properties. So countries have capital city properties, population properties, national anthem properties. I don't know where Microsoft are getting this data, but we know that the Queen passed away 4 weeks ago. And also you've got the leaders property, which I haven't added there, but it's still got Boris Johnson down as our Prime Minister. So it can be a little bit out of date. But just to show you how I did this, I'm just going to, I'll just take one entry. So I'll just type United Kingdom. And at the moment, that is just text. But if I go up to the data menu and I click on geography, I've now converted that from being a text data type to being a geography data type. And along with that geography data type comes a whole load of, as I say, properties. So with that selected, I can click the little icon that appears here, and it brings up all the properties of that data type. So I could choose, for example, capital city, and it automatically fills London in there. London in itself is a data type automatically because it's a geographical location. But if you actually have a look at the formula that's in there, it's equals A10, which is United Kingdom, dot, and then the name of the property. So if I click back on A10 and click the icon again and choose another one of these properties, for example, national anthem, it gives us that. And then the value, the formula in the cell is equals A10 dot national anthem. You can also go and put in those values yourself. So what's happening is when I click the icon there, it's picking the next blank cell on that row and filling it in with the property. But if for some reason I wanted to put the population of the UK over here, I can type equals A10, and I don't even need to type the dot because it knows that what's in A10 is text, but it's been converted into a currency data type. So I can just go and find the population. Okay, so the idea of these live data types is that you can convert text into something that has meaning and values behind it. So any questions on this? Lee says, this is extraordinary. You had no idea. Excellent. That's what we like. We
Yes,
like to
but don't
provide...
forget it's only for 365. So for anyone who's who's not able to get 365 would not have it. So it's one of the many reasons that you should certainly upgrade. I think they're called field
They're called fields.
Yeah. The
Um,
formula. Yeah, get 365, absolutely. A couple of
how
questions. How often do they update? Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I really don't know.
I thought
on
it was
that.
reasonably yeah, I'm surprised it's more than a couple of
and
weeks.
Patrick says this is great for currency rates, and
Mm,
it just so happens that I have actually created a currency table here. So what I did, just to show you how I did this one, I actually typed in the currency rates just as text. It doesn't matter whether you use a slash, a dash, a colon, or just nothing. So you can actually type USD GBP, for example, and then go up to data currencies, and that changes it. So that's what I did with those. And then for these, I've done a formula which is equals A5 dot currency and copied that down. And for these, it's equals A5 dot price. And it's even put the currency symbols in there. Now, when you're talking about updating, how often does it update? It depends on what you mean by update. So, for example, with these, it's, well, if I right click on these, I can go to data type and refresh settings, and you can refresh the geography and you can refresh the stocks, or you can just do refresh all. So you can refresh manually, or you can go to the refresh settings Oh, hang on, that's where I've just been, isn't it? There is an option somewhere to, there it is, to change. Did it change the refresh settings there? No, somewhere there's an option. I don't know if I've got it on this version of Excel, because I'm not sure if this is like the latest beta version, but there is an option where you can change the interval with the refresh. But also that's useful for stock types and share prices and exchange rates, but where the original data comes from, I'm not sure how often that updates. When's that going to change to God Save the Queen? I honestly don't know. So I guess there's two types there of update that we're talking about. Renier says you can create your own data types using Power Query. Interestingly, that is the demo that I'm just about to do. So yes, let me show you that. So I just wanted to start off by showing you what data types are. And it appears that some of you didn't know about that, which is cool. Some of you may have known about that. Okay, so data types, how do you build your own? Well, I have got a CSV file. There it is. I've got a CSV file, which is just a load of made up employee data. And what I want to do is I want to make some data types out of that data. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring that data in to this file using Power Query. So data from text or CSV. Go and find the CSV file and bring it in. And I'm going to bring it in as a connection only, because I don't actually want to dump the data into the spreadsheet.
Oh, I
Then
didn't
I'm going
realize
to
we were
open
getting
up.
Power Query as well. This is quite a bonus.
Okay, then I'm going to open up the query editor. So just right click on the name of the query that I've created and click edit. And that switches me to the Power Query editor. For anyone who's not familiar with Power Query, it's part of Excel that allows you to import data, but it also does a lot of other things as well. You can manipulate that imported data, and Microsoft added the ability to create your own data types, and they stuck it into the Power Query interface. Okay, so making sure I'm on the employees query, what I will do is I will select first name and surname together. Make sure you click first name first and then hold the control key down and click surname, because I'm going to combine those two into a single column. This is one of the things you can do with Power Query. And when you select multiple columns to merge them, the order that you select them is important. And then I'm going to click on transform and merge, and that will let me create, it won't create a new column, it'll merge those two columns together. So transform and merge. The separator will be a space, and I'm going to call the new column employee name. Okay, so we now have a new column called employee name, which has combined the first name and surname together. Okay, I'll also create a new column made out of the annual salary called monthly salary. So I'll click add column, standard, divide by 12, click OK, and then double click the column heading and change its name to monthly salary. Okay, if you want to ask any questions as we go, please feel free. Okie dokie. So the next thing we will do is to select all the columns except the employee names. So I will click on location, sorry, all columns except employee number. So select employee name and shift click on monthly salary, and that selects all of those columns. So I've got all of those columns now selected. And what I'm going to do is say transform create data type. So I'm going to create a data type based on those selected columns. the data type name, I'm going to call it full name. So that's what we will see back in the spreadsheet. And the display column is going to be the employee name. And once I've done that, click on OK. And I don't need to see the employee number, so I can just right click on that and remove it. Okay, once I've done that, I will go to File and select Close and Load. And what that will do is that will close down the query editor and take me back to the spreadsheet. Now in the Queries panel, I need to right click on the query and select Load To and say Table. And the reason I need to do that, and I'll load it into A1, the reason I need to do that is because you can't base data types on connection-only queries. So now you can see that all of these names have got a little icon next to them. So if I just picked a random cell and typed equals, selected A2, what it's done is it's automatically given me each one of the headings that were in the original data as a data type. So if I just selected, for example, monthly salary, double clicked on that, I've got the formula full name dot monthly salary, and now it's picked up the monthly salary of that person.
Wow.
So the idea is,
wow. Okay. I have not seen that before. That is amazing. The chat is going off. Okay. We've got some questions here. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So Aiva would like to know, can we make our own data types available to the whole organization? From what I understand, it's just going to be inside this spreadsheet. Is that right?
Yeah, I think you can make them. I think that was one of the selling points from Microsoft, that you can make them available to the entire organization.
Is that through SharePoint, or how would you
I'm
do
not
that?
quite sure. I'm not quite sure, but yeah.
Wow.
If
Okay.
you, I'll leave my email address at the end. If anyone wants to drop me a mail and just remind me of any questions that were asked that I didn't answer, I can go away and get answers for you.
Yeah. Okay. So Francina would like to know if it's a sample file, or will it work on existing file on a new query if you're updating the data? I think it's just going to be within this one file where you've got it saved, right? Yeah. Yep. Wow. Okay. Cool.
Okay, is this
fantastic
data type local to the workbook or your PC? Well, it's local to this workbook, but as I said, I think you can make them available across the entire organization.
Brilliant.
Okay, and Neil says, I think you can enter monthly salary in B1 and it will populate. Yeah, so if I was to type monthly salary, yes.
Well, if Neil says it, then it's definitely going to work. Yeah. Thanks, Neil.
It's like with anything in Excel, there's loads of different ways of doing things, but yeah, that's a nice little shortcut there, Neil. Okay, so do we have any more questions on that?
No,
we're good. Turning my head because I've got the question panel on my other screen.
Yeah. No,
so I didn't want to take the entire session up with data types, so I plan to leave data types there unless anybody has got
that was amazing. Yeah, I'm sure we could keep going on those, but yeah. No, love this is fantastic. So yeah, we're gonna jump into dynamic arrays now. Okay,
we'll jump into dynamic arrays. I will just close this file down and just open up the dynamic arrays spreadsheet.
Oh, and we're going to make these available. I'll send these files out tomorrow together with the recording, so people can follow along and try it out for themselves if they like.
Okay. Right. Okay, so dynamic arrays. Let's start right at the beginning. In 2018, Microsoft announced a brand new feature in Excel, and this feature was called dynamic array functions. And although they were announced in 2018, they weren't actually added into Excel until 2020. And even then, they were limited to 365 subscribers only. So as Danielle said before, that's a good reason to get 365. Will dynamic arrays change your life? Well, I wouldn't say they'll change your life, but they'll certainly change the way that you work with Excel.
Oh, I think they're pretty life-changing. I really do.
They are. They're life-changing as far as Excel is concerned, definitely.
I know I don't want to freak you out. I don't want to freak you out, Mike, but Oz du Soleil is in the chat. So he is here.
I've just
He is
seen that
here.
Oz is in the
He is
chat.
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've just seen. Yeah. I'll get all nervous now presenting.
I know. I thought I might mention that just to freak you out.
Good to see you, Oz. Good to see you. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. I'm just having a quick look in the chat. Some other questions. Okay, so yeah, dynamic arrays. They're available in Excel for Windows. They're available on Excel for Mac. They're also available in the online version of Excel and also Excel on mobile. And I think they're available in Excel 2021. So if you do have the latest standalone version of Excel, I think you'll be lucky to have these. Now, at the same time as Microsoft announced dynamic arrays, they also announced that existing formulas and functions are going to be, as I call it, dynamic arrayable. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. And they also announced 8 new functions. So dynamic arrays don't just relate to these 8 new functions. It also relates to existing functions as well. Not all existing functions work as dynamic arrays, but a lot of them do.
That's not always appropriate for everything to be.
Yeah.
Is that the word, dynamic arrayable? It's not appropriate for everything.
I think I made that up.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Well, it's certainly red squiggled it in my notes, so I don't think it's a real word, Danielle. I think I've just made it up. But let me explain with some examples. Little history lesson. Before dynamic arrays, a single cell could only contain a single formula. And all that has now changed. A single formula or function can still return a single value, but it can also return a column or a row or an entire array of values. And when we're talking about an array, we're just talking about a block of cells, a single column, a single row, or a block of cells. So let me give you some examples. Here we have a set of invoices for a fictitious company called Excellent Ice Cream, which if you've seen any of my YouTube videos, I use them as a fictitious company. I hope you like the pun on Excel there. So if I wanted to work out when each of these invoices was due, traditionally I would just put a formula which says take the invoice date and add to it what's in G4, make that absolute, and copy that down, and jobs are good. And each cell contains a single formula. But instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put equals B5 to B13 plus G4. I'm not going to absolute it. I'm just going to say equals B5 to B13 plus G4. And it has generated a bunch of formulas. Okay, so that is a dynamic array. There's actually only one formula. There looks like there's many formulas if you look up in the formula bar, but there's only one formula. All the other cells appear to contain a formula, but the formula bar is grayed out. The blue border indicates the extent of the array. So that is showing us that we have one cell, C5, that contains many formulas, and the formulas spill into the adjacent cells automatically.
And I've got to say, and I think Jeff Robson mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but from a financial modeling best practice point of view, that is just fantastic. It means that we're less likely to have errors. So you've got consistency of formulas. And I do tend to use the F4 shortcut to anchor something like G4, but it's good to know that you don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a slightly, slight time saver. Anything you can say shave off when you're entering formulas is a help. Okay, so yeah, only one formula to review, as Renier says. If you want to delete the formula, you can only do it from the top cell. So I can delete and it deletes the lot. If I try and go to another cell and press the delete key, nothing happens because in essence that cell is blank, so it's got nothing to delete. And if you want to edit the formula, you edit it up here and it automatically then updates all of the others. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just put Mike in this cell here, and I'm going to re-enter this formula. So equals, select that range, plus G4. And we get a spill error. If you ever get a spill error, it's because there is something in the way. So as soon as I delete that, it now can spill the formulas into the adjacent cells. Okay, how would this impact the output if more dates were added? Is there a way to automate that too? Well, if I added another date, then it will not automatically pull it down to there. So if I added the 23rd of May 2022, it won't pull it down unless you have made that into a table, in which case it will pull it down. Okay, so if I convert this into a table, which, you know, I think we should do anyway, it's best practice to have your data as a table. So if I just insert table or Control T, make that into a table. Table's called table 6. I'll leave that in the interest of time, but in the real world, I would change that. So let's just tidy it up a bit. So if I then put in the formula again, it's using the column name. There we go. So if I now put in the 23rd of May 2022, now it extends down. So you have to have your data in a table.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. You can, that's changed. You can spill inside a table. Is that whole thing a table?
I was just thinking that myself, Danielle.
What the heck?
Yeah. You can't spill inside a table.
It's a dynamic. Okay.
I think it's because that's actually got me now thinking. I think it's because it's not one of the new formulas. That's the only suggestion I can come up with. But yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Neil's saying that's a table feature, not a dynamic array. So is that still picking up G4 if it's not an absolute reference? G5. Okay.
No,
yeah.
It's not.
So it's spilt down so using the table functionality. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there you go. So it still works. It does still work. So yeah, as Neil says, it's a table feature. And it's, you know, it's not actually treating these as dynamic arrays, is it?
No.
But what if I actually did do B3 to B13? It's not B2, is it? It's B3. If I actually did that and said plus G4, now it doesn't work. Yeah, now it doesn't work. So now we're back to the point, as you say, which I was going to say, that you can't have dynamic arrays inside tables. So yeah, that bit's not going to work.
Okay, I thought you were about to announce that they had changed it all of a sudden and that you were able to spill inside an array. I'm glad that my world wasn't completely turned upside down for a minute there.
That would have been nice.
We've got a couple of questions. Have you got time for a few?
Yeah.
So Henry would like to know if there's a significant performance, speed, memory usage difference between traditional formulas and dynamic array formulas for very large models.
I have no idea. I would guess that it's a better performance with doing it with dynamic arrays, because you only actually have one formula. So I would expect the performance is better, but I don't know for certain.
I think, I don't know if there's a huge amount of difference. Oz Soleil says that it is 2 a.m. T.O. Cole is a real winner. Give me an if, T.O. Cole and unpivot, then stand back. So I don't know if that's one of the functions you're going to talk about, Mike.
It wasn't one I was going to cover.
But I got to try that out. Sounds good.
I will look forward to seeing Ozzy's video on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So yeah, another thing you can do is let me go to this next sheet. Okay, what I've done here is I have done another simple formula. So what I've got here, let me delete these. What I've got here is a spreadsheet that I use on my standard getting started with formulas trainings, just to illustrate partial absolutes. So what I'll do is I'll just recreate the formula here by saying B6, and I want to make column B absolutes, but not row 6, multiplied by the exchange rate for US euro, which is H6, but I want to make the 6 absolute, and then copy that lot down and copy that lot across. So I've got a whole bunch of formulas in there with partial absolutes, and that's just so that as I copy the formulas across and down, it is it's referencing column B all the time, and it's referencing row 6 all the time. And you know, trying to explain part absolutes to newbies can be quite challenging. So an alternative way of doing it is to go into this cell here and just say equals that range there multiplied by that range there. No absolutes needed, and it still creates a dynamic array where all of these formulas are grayed out except the first one. So it's literally like a matrix in a way. So it's multiplying each one of those by each one of those, and it's just a million times quicker. Okay, just see if there's any more questions. Don't see any more questions.
I think we're good.
Okay, so the next thing I will show you is that, and I mentioned this before, that you've got existing functions that you can actually use as dynamic arrays. So traditionally, if I wanted to convert these flavors into uppercase, I'd have put equals upper, open brackets, A2, close brackets, and then copied down, and then you'd end up with a whole load of formulas. But now what I can do is I can do equals upper, open brackets, select the entire range, close brackets and enter, and it creates an array of formulas in column B. Again, you've got the border, you've got the grayed out formulas, but yeah, it's converted all of those to uppercase. Okay, so same thing with this one here. I'm going to use concatenate here, or concat, it doesn't really matter. But if I use equals concatenate and select the entire range, then what we get is we get, no, we don't. Hang on a minute. Forget that. Equals concatenate. I'll do that again. Select just the first names, comma, put in a space. Do that again, put in a space, comma, and then select the surnames. So again, it saves you having to enter in one formula and copy it down. So there's just a couple of examples of existing formulas that can be turned into dynamic arrays.
Cool. Henry would like to know if it's possible to do it across in multiple dimensions. So Peter says you can do VStack.
Can you do it across sheets?
Yeah, that's done.
I see that I think somebody's answered that question. They're limited. Okay. VStack works on 3D arrays, as does 2col. Huh. I haven't done much with VStack and 2col yet. They are. I've
only just started kind of using those, finding, you know, real life situations to use some of these new functions, and transpose, of course, is fantastic.
Yeah, and as Neil says, the example I've just done with concatenate works well with the old way of doing it with ampersand as well. So yeah, that works fine. Okay, so let's move on and let me show you some of the new functions. So as I said before, Microsoft added 8 functions when they brought out dynamic arrays. What I've shown you so far is existing functions and existing formulas will work on as dynamic arrays. But let's go on and look at some of the newer functions. Okay, so this is a repayment schedule for a loan. I've tried to make it as realistic as possible, but having a bunch of financial modelers in the audience, I'm sure you'll pick me up on some things, but I'm not a financial modeler, I'm an Excel person. I've got my loan amount, I've got my annual interest rate, I've got my number of payments, and then I've got my PMT function to work out the monthly repayment. Then I've got the cost of the loan, the date of the loan agreement. I've just typed a date in there, and we're going to pay this back every 30 days. So I want to create a repayment schedule. And what I basically want is the numbers 1 to 12 down there. And then I want to show the dates, and I want to show the amounts. Now, of course, I could just put 1, 2, and then just manually fill those down. But that's not going to help me if I want to vary the number of payments. So if this happened to be 18, I want it to update to 18. So to do that, I'm going to use the sequence function. So equals sequence, and this allows me to define a range. It could be a single column, it could be a single row, or it could be a block of rows and columns with sequential numbers, although it doesn't have to be sequential numbers because you tell it how what the step value would be. So I'm going to say this range, this array, is going to be made up from X number of rows, where X is the value in B5, comma, 1 column, start at 1 and step in 1s. Actually, I don't need all of those parameters. I can get away with just the first parameter because there are default values. So if I press enter, it just generates 1 to 12. If I change that to 24, it generates 1 to 24, and so on. If I take out a 3-year loan, we get 1 to 36. Let's just keep it as 1 to 12. So the dynamic element of that is, as you change this value, it just resizes this array. If I change that to 6, we've got 6. The payment date, so column E is going to have the payment date in it. And that's going to be the actual date that the money was taken out of my account to repay this loan. So the first payment will be 30 days after the start of the loan, and then every 30 days from then. So here I will put equal sequence. The number of payments is going to be the number of rows, which is that. Number of columns is going to be 1, because we only want it to display in 1 column. I want to start it 30 days after B10, so B10 plus 30. And I want to step it in intervals of 30, which is B11. And that just generates dates 30 days apart. I mean, again, obviously you could just do a formula here which says that plus 30 and copy the formula down, but I think this is much quicker. It also means
so nice. Yeah, that's fantastic. I never would think to use, I only use a sequence for numbers. I would never think to do it for dates. I thought you were going to go with an E date or an EO month or something like that. Fantastic. Love it.
Yeah, I have done an example with EO month and E date. But I was just keeping this one relatively simple.
Nice.
It also means, you know, if you change the repayment interval, then they update. If you change the number of payments, then they update. One thing I did find is it doesn't automatically it doesn't automatically format. So I always say just do more, format the cells manually and just format more cells than you think you'll need. And then you're not going to hit the problem.
That's a nice one. I don't know if I told you I'm working on a new course for LinkedIn, and I was looking for some. You might just find this in a in a training course. So hence the new headset. I've been busy recording all day financial functions. So that is a fantastic example.
I did see your picture with your
I
headset.
might steal that if you don't mind, Mike.
No, I don't mind at all. Steal with pride. Renier says you can use it with timestamps with decimal numbers. That's actually another demo. I've not got that demo today, but yeah, I did. I actually created effectively like a calendar in half-hour intervals or 1 hour intervals, and I did it with a sequence function as well.
Yeah, nice.
So just start at midnight.
It's so good to see
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
like these other ideas. So I always think of sequence in a particular way, and it's so good to see it used in a different way, and it just makes you realize what you can do, and perhaps you haven't thought of doing it differently.
Yeah. The next column was total repaid to date. So I want it there to generate a certain number of values, one value per row, starting with the monthly repayment and then just adding the monthly repayment on. So the way I did this was to put equals, not search, equals sequence. Again, how many rows do we want? How many columns do we want? Or I could just leave that blank and just put the extra comma in. I want to start at whatever's in B6, and I want it to increment also by what's in B6.
That is very cool. Wow. Okay. Love it.
You like that one?
That is so cool.
So that's what that's doing, is it's basically just generating X number of values based on multiples of that. The other way to do it, of course, is just to take the monthly repayment and multiply it by the repayment number. So, 1 times 879, 2 times 879, etc. And of course, those two then equal each other. And if you then go for, 24 months, it just automatically updates it.
Yeah, very simple. I love the simplicity of it. It's very nice.
Yeah, I like it as well. Now for this one, I'm going to go back to D3 and I'm going to edit the formula. And in quotes, I'm going to put payment number ampersand and that. So what we then get is we get that payment number 1, payment number 2, etc. And again, if you change this, it automatically updates that. Obviously, if you had a formula which calculated the repayment amount by what was in D, that will then mess that up because those are no longer just straight numbers. Okay. Right, another example then. Is everyone okay with that? So let me show you another example of sequence. And this is one that I use on my trainings when I show how to create a waffle chart. If anyone's never heard of a waffle chart, basically it's this. And it's called a waffle chart, I think, for obvious reasons, because it looks like a waffle. So Excellent Ice Cream have just had an injection of capital, and this is the split. So you can see there that I need to create a chart for Australia and Asia Pac. So what I will do is I will, I've already set these columns up to be fairly narrow. So it's just changing the column widths. And then in AB3, I will put equals sequence. And I want 10 by 10, starting at 100 and going down in ones. You'll see why we want to go down in ones shortly. So I want a 10 by 10 grid with the numbers 100 through to 1. Okay, that as obviously because it can't show the 3 digits, but I'm not going to increase the column width. For some reason, AK is slightly wider than it needs to be. There we go. And then I'm going to apply conditional formatting. So select those cells there, conditional formatting, new rule, format cells that contain where the cell value is less than or equal to D6. So I want it to look at D6 because that is the percent for Australia. And any cell that is less than 21, I want it to apply a format. So let's just pick a fill color. That one will do. And there we go. So if that changed, let's say that went up to 40 and that went up to 24, it automatically applies the conditional formatting. I will go and hide those cell values. I don't know how you do it, but I use what I call the semicolon trick, where I apply a custom format just to hide the cell contents and then go and apply borders.
I haven't done that for ages. Talked while I'm on
What?
mute. Yeah, you can also go into the rules in conditional formatting and edit it there as well. There's a few ways to do it.
Under conditional
Manage.
formatting?
Yeah, you can go in edit rule and just say show no, I'm thinking of icons.
Yeah, I was going to say you're thinking of icons because
yeah.
the same thing happened to me the other day on a training session. I was about to do exactly what you did, and then it hit me that that's only for icon sets.
Okay.
So yeah, I use the semicolon trick all the time.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, and the reason that's a -1, the reason I wanted to go down from 100 to 1 is because I want the colors to be applied to the low numbers, not the high numbers. Okay, so I don't want it to go up from 1 to 100.
Okay.
So there is another example of a sequence function. How long have we got
Mike,
left?
we've only got about 10 minutes left. You know what? I think we're going to have to do a follow-up. I can see you've got quite a bit still to go, and we could do a whole one.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to cover every single dynamic
okay.
array function. So what I will do is I will jump over to the filter functions. Let's jump over to the filter functions.
Nice.
Because if there is one dynamic array function that I love, it is the filter function. I used to love, I still do love XLOOKUP, and I've got a t-shirt to prove it. Although I don't know if you would class XLOOKUP as a dynamic array. Microsoft sort of do, as one of the new dynamic array functions. But once I started using the filter function, that's when I really fell in love with dynamic array functions. So what is the filter function? Well, as its name suggests, it is a function that allows you to apply filters and store the results of those filters elsewhere. It's a bit like the data advanced filter, which I haven't done for ages. It's one of those things that that I used to show on training courses many years ago, but it's not one of those things that I've shown lately. And I've always found it a little bit fiddly, but it does allow you to create multiple filter areas, multiple criteria areas, and it's quite useful for generating a filtered list and sticking it somewhere else. But this is actually much better. So I need to see the information from this table. I need to see it here for a particular flavor. So what I'm going to do in H2 is I'm going to create a data validation dropdown, which I can then use as the criteria. Now, the list for the validation dropdown is here, and that in itself is a dynamic array. I've used two dynamic array functions. I've used the sort function and the unique function. If I'd done a full session on dynamic array functions, then I would probably have covered these two. But the unique function takes a list of values and displays the unique values. So it basically removes the duplicates. So you can see there that we've got a list of those flavors, which has been pulled from here, but it's not included the duplicates. The sort function sorts the list into alphabetical order because you can't use the standard sort buttons on a dynamic array. So I've nested two functions together there. I've told it to sort, and what I've told it to sort is the result of that dynamic array. Okay. So I can then go up to H1 and do data validation, tell it that I want to create a list. And for the source, I'm going to say M2, but I'm going to put a hash sign. If I don't put a hash sign, then I just get what's in M2. But if I put a hash sign, oops, I'm in the wrong cell, go back to there, data validation. If I put a hash sign, if you put a hash sign after a cell reference, and that cell reference is the cell that's the start of the dynamic array, it picks up the entire array values. And you can use that anywhere, not just in data validation. So I could put equals M2 hash, and it references the entire array, which is really useful. So if I picked one of these, obviously it's just putting it in the cell. But how does this filter work? So I go to G4 and I put equals filter. The array I want to filter is all of this here. I could make that into a table and it would reference the table name, but I haven't, comma. Then I tell it what I want to include. Well, I want to include the records where the flavor equals whatever's in H1. So you can see what it's doing. It's actually picking up all the data, but only for strawberry. Change that. Change that. So see what it's doing? It's dynamically generating a filter. Let's look at another example. Okay. Soccer World Cup is coming up. This is a list of, I don't know what I'm going to do when the World Cup's finished with this example. I will probably still use it, but obviously it's quite topical. The World Cup's coming up next month. And so I've got a list of the countries, and this is in a table, which is called World Cup, and which group they're in. And I want to be able to show the names of the teams in each group. So I will go over to F2 and put equals filter, open brackets, World Cup, which is the name of the table, open square brackets, team, which is the, hang on a minute, yeah, team, which is the name of the column there. So I want it to list the teams, but I don't want it to list all the teams. I only want it to list the teams that are in this case, Group A. So include where World Cup group equals right, open brackets, F1, comma, 1. That should work. Yeah, there we go.
A bit of extra complexity there. Wow. Okay.
Okay, so what that's doing is that is filtering this table, but it's only showing it where the group name is equal to what's in there, to the last character in there. So I can just copy and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste and paste. And I have now my little group tables. Okay, let's do another one.
Oh, probably just got time for another one, Mike.
Yeah, just got time for another one.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I've got here is a list of transactions from the Excellent Ice Creams bank account. And what I'm going to do here is split them up into credits and debits. So equals filter, open brackets, select the array, which is actually a table, comma, and I only want to include the ones where the type, what's the table called? The table's called transactions. So transactions, square brackets, type, equals, and then in quotes, CR. Okay, now it has included the CR. So what you can do is there is a way of actually applying a filter within that.
A filter within a filter.
I think we put a comma there, open square brackets, and then I would put 1 comma 1 comma 0, close square brackets, close normal brackets. Yeah, that's it.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay.
It's a double filter, and that bit there is telling it which columns you want to use. So 1 means display the column, 0 means hide it. So we want to see the date. So we want to see the first column, we want to see the second column, but we don't want to see the third column. So to save time, I'll copy that. I'll paste that over here, and I'll just edit the CR to DR.
Very
there
cool.
we go. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I hope that has been useful. I will as I said, stick my email address up on screen if anybody does want to contact me. You can also contact me through the exceltrainer.co.uk. So I hope that has been a useful session covering lots of stuff on dynamic array functions and stuff on data types. I'm more than happy to do a follow-up if you want me to, Danielle. We can sort
it sounds
out.
Sounds like there's still a lot to so much to cover with this stuff. There are lots of questions about the Excel file. Yes, I'm going to send that out. I'll also send a link to your website and email address if people would like to get in touch if they've got follow-up questions or they'd like to get you to do. I know you do lots and lots of online training, and so I'm sure that people would love to have you as a trainer, which would be fantastic. So thank you so much, Mike. That was incredible. And we'll try to maybe schedule another one. I know Peter's got some good ideas. We are probably going to do, we've got a couple in the pipeline. If anyone's got any other ideas for meetups or different topics, I'd love to hear from you. We're starting to schedule for next year. Lots of things coming up. And for anyone who is in the Women in Financial Modeling group, we are getting together in about half an hour from now, and we are going to go through the Financial Modeling World Cup stage 7 that was just run over the weekend, and we're going to go through all of the results and go through some of the models. So the fun is not yet over. We have got more on tonight. So thank you so much, Mike. That was incredible. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we sign off for today?
No, as I said, I just hope everyone's got some use out of that. It seems like they have, just looking at the chat comments.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of day.
Thanks, Mike.
Or should I say, have an excellent day?
Yes, you should.